Is it the oil that might spark or stem an attack? Well, joining me from Dunedin is international relations expert Professor Robert Patman. Thanks so much for joining us, Professor. Really appreciate your time. How much is this threat about trying to shut down or delay Iranian nuclear ambitions, and how much of it is about oil control?
I think it is about Iran's nuclear ambitions. Israel has been very sensitive about this for some time, and Israel is also sensitive to the fact that Iran's regional influence has grown quite dramatically in the Middle East since the invasion by the United States of Iraq back in 2003. Ironically, Israel backed that invasion, and it didn't seem to anticipate that that would bring an extension of Iran's influence in the region, not least its connections with the Shia majority in Iraq. So what we've seen with the overthrow of the Saddam regime in Iraq is that Iran has, in a sense, benefited from the chaos during the US occupation and extended its influence. And there has been the concern, it must be stressed, is not limited to Israel. The United States also believes it would be unacceptable if Iran obtained a nuclear weapon.
Okay, and so let's just assume we're looking at the sort of April deadline at the moment. If Israel does strike Iran, what will that mean? Are we looking at full-out war?
Well, I think the risks are great, and I think the rewards are also very uncertain because, you know, at the moment, although the United States and Israel both worry about Iran having nuclear weapons, there is quite a considerable difference between the United States and Israel and how this problem must be handled. The Obama administration believes that the emphasis should be on diplomacy. They were encouraged by the Europeans, who recently placed quite stringent oil sanctions against the Iran regime. That means that 20% of Iran's oil exports are going to, by June, effectively be phased out to Europe. That doesn't, of course, mean that other countries where Iran exports oil to, such as China, such as South Korea, such as Japan, are going to follow suit. They probably are not. But I think America takes the belief, the Obama administration takes the view that a military strike at this stage, before those sort of sanctions have had a chance to work, would be totally counterproductive.
Okay,
and the Obama administration, say that essentially the Middle East is a very different place to when Israel last used military force in a preemptive fashion in, for example, Syria in 2007.
OK, so Obama is hoping for diplomacy, but we understand that Netanyahu is courting Republicans to back a campaign.
Yes.
So how will that play out?
Yes, and, well, it's very clearly, there's no love lost between Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Obama. Mr. Obama will stand by the Israelis, particularly if the Iranians, if there was an Israeli attack and the Iranians retaliated against Israel. But I think the Americans are signalling quite clearly that they would only get militarily involved if US interests were directly threatened, if there was some sort of confrontation between Israel and Iran.
That's the threat at the moment from Iran, isn't it?
Yes. And what the Iranians are doing, of course, Ayatollah Khamenei today, what he's signalling is that he's saying to the Americans, you better get a grip on Israel, because don't think you're going to be left out of the equation if we get attacked.
And so is that what the US needs to do? Do they need to get a grip on Israel?
Well, I think the Obama administration is trying to be a loyal strategic ally of Israel, but at the same time trying to forestall the possibility of what it would see, any use of premature military force by Israel. It's a very difficult position for the Obama administration. It's the election year. The Obama administration won't want to do anything that's been seen as disloyal to Israel with an election looming. At the same time, Mr. Obama seems to be determined to try to give these mounting sanctions against Iran a chance. After all, Iran has shown that it has responded to international pressure in the past. It should be pointed out that 80% of Iran's revenue comes from the export of oil. If these sanctions really begin to bite, then Iran may have to think again about giving assurances about its nuclear program.
Is President Obama correct when he says that Iran's been able to advance that nuclear program because the Israeli-Palestinian conflict hasn't been resolved?
Well, I'm pleased you raised that point. That is another big point of difference between the Israelis and this administration, the Obama administration. The Obama administration from day one has been trying to get talks going between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Now, that's led to quite considerable conflicts between Mr. Netanyahu and the Obama administration. The difficulty for Mr. Obama is that while he believes that this conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis plays into the Iranians' hands, which use it as a sort of a lever to boost their influence in the region, the difficulty for Mr. Obama is that his Republican opponents, Mr. Romney and Mr. Gingrich, make it quite clear that they wholly support the Israeli position in the dispute with the Palestinians and endorse the occupation of the West Bank.
So, Professor, what do you think might turn things around? I mean, let's play the crystal ball question. What do you think this will play out like in the next month or so?
Well, this is an extremely difficult one. I personally, perhaps I'm an optimist by nature and a pessimist by training, but I personally hope that diplomacy will come into play. The Iranians have a big incentive to be responsive to this diplomacy and indeed pressure, because I think they know that Israel has shown it will take military action if it doesn't, I think, signal more firmly to the rest of the world. The Iranians have maintained all along they're not interested in developing nuclear weapons, but they do need, I think, to be more cooperative in getting that message across and reassuring the International Atomic Energy Agency, for one, that there is absolutely no prospect of Iran developing nuclear weapons.
Yeah, they need to build some confidence, don't they? We have to leave it there, but I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Professor Robert Patman from the University of Otago.